reading this morning comes to us from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 7, verses 1 through 10. After Jesus had finished all his sayings in the hearing of all the people, he entered Capernaum. A centurion there had a slave whom he valued highly and who was ill and close to death. When he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to him, asking him to come and heal his slave. When they came to Jesus, they appealed to him earnestly, saying, "He is worthy of having you do this for him, for he loves our people, and it is he who built our synagogue for us." And Jesus went with them. But when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends to say to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you, but only speak the word and let my servant be healed. For I also am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, 'Go,' and he goes, and to another, 'Come,' and he comes, and to my slave, 'Do this,' and he does it." When Jesus heard this, he was amazed at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, he said, "I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith." When those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the slave in good health. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. There was a brief temptation this week to do a sermon on the King's Passage and entitle it, "What a Load of Bull." And perhaps I should have gone ahead and gone with that. But I think that the title would have too quickly ruined the message of having faith in God. And you see, that's what the rest of these passages have been speaking to us, but especially this gospel passage today. This gospel passage that is the artwork of Luke, the great writer. The sad part about the way we have our Bibles written is this: Luke and Acts are separated by John. And not that that's necessarily a bad thing, because John's a wonderful gospel, but it separates the true nature of Luke's writing, which is that you need to read Luke and then Acts. They work together. And in that, this story becomes framed with the story in Acts in which Peter is also sent to a centurion. Now the differences there are, in that story, Peter has to be persuaded to go, and not just one time, not just 2 times, but 3 times, as it seems that Peter needs 3 times to do a lot of things in his life. But this story, this centurion, Jesus hears the plea of the centurion and goes immediately, which is truly amazing in one sense, because this is one of the first times that Luke starts talking to us about Jesus moving from just teaching Israel to opening the gospel to all, to the Gentiles, to those who were persecuting the Jews. Now, this Roman centurion is a bit of an enigma in some senses, because he comes to us in the story not out of the power of Rome, but out of the faithfulness of a Jewish proselyte, a Gentile who still had yet to fully fulfill the rituals of becoming Jewish. But he was learning about the God of Israel, and he put his faith there. And when he heard about Jesus, his faith was so great in the power of Jesus that he sends a delegation of Jewish elders from the local synagogue to say, "Jesus, I have someone in my house whom is sick. They are a prize to me. I want you to heal them." Now, the messengers didn't come and say, he wants you to come to the house. He just sent them to say, Jesus, heal my slave. Wow. But there's a little bit of a problem with this story, because these Jewish elders don't seem to represent the rest of Israel that Luke talks about. The other Jewish leaders who, at every turn, question Jesus' authority, question his ability to say that he's the Son of God, question whether or not he has the power that he says he does. But these Jewish elders come to Jesus with the faith of the centurion. Now, the other thing we start to see is this centurion enigma is this: he's actually liked by the Jewish people. This is the man who in that area, in Capernaum of Galilee, is the face of Roman authority, the very face of oppression. And yet, the people like him. In fact, they say, do this for him, Jesus, because he even built up our synagogue. Wow. Remember that this is an empire that came in and has occupied the land, has at every turn knocked down their ability to worship God the way they want to, has taken away the ability for them to exist as the people of God as was intended. And here are some of the Jewish people saying, this man is so good. In fact, this is a man who could have sent a delegation to Jesus saying, I am a Roman centurion, and by the authority of Rome, in my armor and my sword, you must do for me this. But that's not how he approached the situation. In fact, he did quite the opposite. He humbled himself, sent a delegation. He did not go himself. He sent a delegation to go and ask Jesus to come. And Jesus, in hearing this, is moved, and so he starts traveling there. And this centurion, again, a large physical man, says, Lord, do not come to my house, for I am unworthy of your presence here. Very similar to hearing the words of John the Baptist as he was proclaiming the coming of Christ, saying, I baptize you with water, but there is one who is coming whom I am not worthy to tie his sandal. Talk about what a powerful faith the centurion has to say, Lord, you can do this, but I am so unworthy, don't even come to my house, for I could not handle what the responsibility would be to have you here. Which, of course, is a little bit funny, right? Jesus is a pretty humble guy himself and doesn't ask much when he goes places. It's not as if Jesus walks in and expects the grand royal treatment of the king. He walks in as a servant himself, and even in that, the centurion is saying, you are too great for me to host. Wow, what faith. And so the centurion sends delegates, his own delegates, to go to Jesus and say, don't come, but please just say the word. Amazing. And I don't know why I was drawn to this. But in reading the passage, something sparked me to look at the poem To a Mouse. And this poem is about the plowman who is preparing his field for the winter. Has gone out, and as his plow goes through, he realizes he's displaced a mouse who had prepared a nest for the winter. sparking the great line. Dear mouse, the best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry. And it sparked me back to this passage. For we see the centurion saying, there is nothing I can do of my own that will make this better. For he has admitted, I am one who is under authority, and I tell my men, go, and they go. I say, come, and they come. I tell my servant, do this, and the servant does it. So you could almost imagine at one point the centurion looking at his servant and saying, get better! Get better. But it's something that even the slave trying to follow the commands of the centurion could not do. For there was nothing that human interference would do for this servant. And out of faith, the centurion sends to Jesus. It's a bit of a stretch. But I started to see in the poem this centurion, part of Rome, holding the plow of Rome, running through Israel, displacing the Jewish people. Not necessarily from their homes, but from their life. They still had their homes, but they weren't the same. Now, as I said, it's a bit of a stretch. But the centurion then also realizes what the plow is doing, and then says, let me at least rebuild something for you. And builds the synagogue and starts to understand the life of the Israelites. Much as the plowman in the poem is looking at the mouse and starting to say, I understand what you are going through. The best laid plans of mice and men oft go awry. The centurion says, I have faith in you, Jesus. Just say the word. And here's the word that Jesus says. How amazing. I have not even in Israel seen such faith. The very faith that Jesus sought. The faith that God had been pouring out, and yet people seem to be ignoring. And here it was, this centurion, this proselyte, this person who wore the armor of oppression. I have faith in you, Jesus, to heal all of us. Just say the word, and he shall be healed. My servant shall be healed. My beloved shall be healed. He didn't ask for the presence. He simply asked out of faith, God, you don't even have to be present. Just say the word from wherever you are. Sometimes we forget to say, God, wherever you are. But the reality is this. Wherever God is where we are too. We are never apart from God. But Jesus does not have to be standing here in front of us in the flesh for us to know Jesus' power. The Spirit is always around us. Jesus may have ascended to heaven, but Jesus' presence is still here at every turn. That's the glory. That's the glory that when the delegation returns from Jesus, probably downtrodden when they first went back because they did not receive the word, out of faith the servant shall be healed. But when they return home, who is standing there, healed and ready to serve again? The beloved servant. How much more we as beloved servants shall receive that same grace when we in faith ask for the same. Heal us, O God. Jesus wants to find faith. And in other passages he reminds us that, oh, if only you had the faith the size of a mustard seed, you could tell that mountain to come down and it would. Oh, for faith that big. Just the size of a mustard seed. But the problem is we're much like the plowman in the poem, who says to the mouse, "Oh, you lucky mouse, you are so blessed, for you live in the moment and you are not worried." Indeed, that mouse goes off and continues its life saying, "Everything will be fine. I'm displaced now, but that doesn't mean there is not a home for me somewhere." The plowman continues on his lament and says, "I continue to look behind me and lament all that I have done. But then I turn back around and I look forward and I am afraid." Blessed is the mouse who has faith in God in the present moment. For nothing behind and nothing ahead can create fear. There's nothing in this world that humanity can do. There is no principality, there is no sword, there is no weapon, there is no inhumane act that can separate us from God. Our faith joins us, binds us with the Holy Spirit to Jesus Christ and to God the Father. Our hopes are not dashed, for our faith will make us well. Truly, in Israel I have never seen such faith.